It is 6 in the morning, and the kettle has not gone on yet. There is a kind of quiet in the kitchen at this hour that has nothing to do with the absence of sound. My mother used to stand at the window like this, coffee not yet made, just looking out at the water before anything else in the day had a chance to ask something of her. I do the same thing now without having decided to. Nobody taught me this. It was just there, in the house, the way certain rooms hold a particular light. The American default treats quiet like a gap, something that opens up when the television is off, or the phone is face down, or the guests have gone home, and the instinct is almost always to fill it. Music goes on, a call gets made, the silence is read as a problem waiting for a solution, evidence that something is missing rather than something that has simply arrived. I understand that instinct. I have felt it too, especially in places where the quiet is unfamiliar and starts to feel like being watched. But that is not what this is. Where I am from, silence is not the sound of nothing happening. It is closer to the sound of nothing needing to happen. There is a specific version of it that only exists in a house near water, in a place with real winters, where the dark comes early enough that the day essentially ends at 4 in the afternoon for months at a time. You cannot fight that kind of dark. You cannot fill 5 hours of it with errands and noise and still feel like you got away with something. Eventually the quiet wins, because there is simply more of it than you have plans for. What happens instead, and what took me a long time to understand as anything other than strange, is that people stop treating the silence as an interruption and start treating it as the actual texture of the evening. A book, a candle, a window with nothing on the other side of it but dark water, and maybe one light across the fjord that has been there as long as anyone can remember. Nobody is performing peace for anyone else in that room. Nobody needs to be. I remember being maybe 9 years old, sitting at the table while my grandfather mended something with his hands, a net or a piece of leather, I don't fully remember which, and neither of us said a word for what must have been 40 minutes. At the time I did not think anything of it. It was only much later, describing that memory to someone from somewhere else entirely, that I realized how strange it sounded out loud. 40 minutes, no music, no conversation starter. Just two people existing in the same room, comfortable enough with each other that filling the air was never even a consideration. I did not know, at 9, that this was a kind of intimacy. I thought it was just what being with someone looked like. It is worth being honest about the parts of this that are not automatically peaceful. Silence can also be heavy. There are winters where the quiet stops feeling like company and starts feeling like isolation, where the same stillness that felt like presence in October starts to feel like absence by February. I do not want to romanticize this into something it is not. The difference, as far as I can tell, is not the silence itself. It is whether you were ever given the tools to sit inside it without needing it to mean something is wrong. Most people I grew up around were given those tools early, almost without noticing, the way you learn to walk before you remember learning it. Most people I have met since leaving were not, and it shows in how quickly they reach for a phone the second a room goes quiet. Not because they are addicted to the phone exactly, but because the quiet itself has never felt safe to be inside of. There is a particular kind of conversation that only happens in this kind of silence, and it is almost never the conversation you expect. It does not happen when two people sit down specifically to talk. It happens in the gaps around something else, washing dishes side by side, driving somewhere with the radio off, standing at the same window at the same time, without either person having planned to be there. Something gets said in those moments that would never survive being scheduled. I think this is because a scheduled conversation carries an expectation with it, some sense that it needs to arrive somewhere, resolve into something, be worth the interruption. A conversation that happens inside silence that was never going to be filled anyway carries no such weight. It can say almost nothing and still matter enormously, precisely because nothing was riding on it. I think about this every time I am somewhere loud enough that quiet has become a kind of luxury item, something people pay for at a retreat or drive 2 hours to find. It makes me sad in a specific way, not because loud places are bad, but because it means an entire skill has quietly gone missing for a lot of people, without anyone naming it as a loss. Nobody grieves the ability to sit in a room without needing to fill it, because it does not announce itself as a loss the way other things do. It just gets a little harder every year to be still, until stillness itself starts to feel like something that requires effort, rather than something that used to be the default state of being alive. I notice it most in the small moments that should be nothing: waiting for water to boil, standing in an elevator with one other person, a pause in a conversation that lasts 1 second longer than expected. In a lot of places I have been, that pause gets treated like a small emergency, something to be rescued with a comment about the weather, or a joke that did not need to exist. Where I am from, the pause is just the pause. Nobody rushes to end it. It ends when it ends. And in the meantime, nobody in the room is uncomfortable, because discomfort was never the assumption to begin with. What I would want anyone hearing this to take from it is not a lesson exactly, because I do not think this is really teachable in the way a habit is teachable. It is closer to a permission. The quiet is not empty. It was never empty. It only reads as empty if you were taught to expect it to be filled. And that expectation can be unlearned slower than it feels possible. Sitting in a room a little longer than feels comfortable, letting a car ride pass without the radio, letting a dinner end without immediately reaching for the next thing. It does not happen quickly. It happened for me over an entire childhood spent in rooms exactly like the one I described at the start of this. Standing at a window with nothing yet made, watching water that was not going anywhere, and did not need me to either. Sit with that for a moment. I'll see you in the next one.